Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Anika.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 4 of season 1 of Strange New Worlds. We're talking about Memento Mori. If I pronounce that wrong, I apologize, people. And this episode is all about bad timing and traps. Because while the USS Enterprise is on a convenient supply mission, nothing ever stays simple for long, because now they're walking right into a trap with the Gorn, which means La'an is freaked out, and this whole episode is about how they are still badasses. Initial reactions, Monica. What did you think of this episode?
I really liked this fast-paced episode. It was a little less away mission. They only spent a little bit of time on the planet. However, there was a lot of action. I could tell they spent a lot of money developing this episode. Like $14 million because as the cost of the average episode for Star Trek series at Paramount. But there was a lot of details and the scenes were amazingly shot. I love the space battle scenes. A lot of it reminded me of Hunt for Red October, in which they were talking about like dive and like under the radar of the Gorn and stuff like that. So there's a lot of connections there and connections to Discovery, which was so cute and sentimental for me. And it really showcased Pike's leadership for me. Much more so than a few other. I learned a lot about Pike's strategy, and he has a lot of confidence going into this. And hopefully this maneuver is named after him. What do you think about the episode?
I liked it. I will admit, because I last episode I did talk about the fact that I wasn't sure. I didn't really like La'an, and when I realized this episode was going to be about her and what she went through, part of me was like, do I really want to watch this? Because I don't really. I don't know. She rubs me the wrong way, and I get because she's been through a lot, and I get that it's like a lot of trauma, but it's just, honey, like you're at a 10, I need you to come down to like a 2. Like you're at a 10 every single day. And like the one time you need to be at a 10, you shut down. And I'm just like, lie. But I will admit, by the end of this episode, I sort of changed my tune on her. I still don't like her. Like we would never be friends, but I have a little bit more respect for her. Pike is definitely all about the fact that I'm not dying yet. We're going to make it through this, but it's always a question of who is going to make it with him. Because just because he's going to be alive in 10 years doesn't mean the rest of his crew is going to be alive in 10 years. So it's like he always is at that line of, all right, we got to try something different, but I don't want to risk everyone else's life as well. Because even though I know I will survive, I don't want my crew to die because I know I'm safe for a bit. So we get to see a lot of it of Pike's leadership, and then I liked seeing some of the characters connect. And I liked the little tie back to Discovery. I liked seeing a little bit of emotion cross Spock's face regarding it. I did like this episode. At the end of it, I did like it. I did go in thinking like, oh God, it's gonna be one of those episodes. One of the reasons why I didn't like La'an is part of the opening scene. It is the Honor Starfleet Remembrance Day, and this chick refuses to wear the pin that everyone else is wearing to honor the people. Like it's like our Veterans Day, so she refuses to wear the pin to honor them. And I know it's just a symbolism, but like this whole little attitude that she has is very annoying. And it's like, just do it. It's like you're in the military. You signed up for this. You signed up to wear the accoutrements. You should want to help your fallen people. It's not like you're a civilian not wearing it. You're literally in the military and you refuse to wear the stuff to honor your past people. What about you?
There's always one rebel, right? There's always one person that doesn't follow, and it's not a rule. Una pointed it out to her. Una reported out to her and stepped away when she realized, like, okay, Leanne's not there yet. She still has closure that she has to work out. But I think learning more about like Pike's relationship and how Pike is helping to direct Leanne through leadership and helping to think about hope for tomorrow, helping her to think about like not being as direct and her communications, I think she'll grow. It
Yes.
reminds me a lot about Michael. There's a lot of direct, a lot of thinking about
That's
like
true.
acting without thinking about people's feelings. And
Pause. I'm so sorry. I have to cut you off real quick. Pause, 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 pause. They both had horrible childhoods. They both were okay. And like I wasn't okay. And I was having
yeah,
mind blown because I did not put that together to just noun people. Thank you for blowing my mind.
yeah, they're both orphans. And in this case, when there was the connection with Spock, we learned even more.
So this episode, as I said in the opening, it's all about them trying to do a standard routine supply mission, and nothing's ever routine in space, ever. And so, when they realize that the colony is gone, they find a ship of people, and they're like, "Okay, let's transport you on." And it's like, "Oh, we can't transport." And in my mind, all I was screaming in my head when I was watching that scene of like the person telling them, "Oh, you can't beam us out," is trap, 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 trap. Like when they were being held, trap, 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 trap. Like the entire thing, I was screaming in my head, "This is a trap. Don't trust them." Because they had to do a full space bridge. And I felt like Pike, after everything you've already seen, you're a little too trusting of these people. Like I would have sent a shuttle, like an away team to the ship first, inspect it, and don't just assume everyone's good, Pike. Like I thought that was a little too easy for him to just assume they weren't lying.
Right. I also think that there should have been some data on the ship. Because although I understand that the professor did not remember the detail, but there should have been some data about, I don't know, or video footage or something in the records of the Gorn killing off half of the population on that ship. And I just thought that they could capture that to learn a little bit more to help fill in the gaps.
Speaking to the choir, because I felt like that entire rescue scene was a trap. And sadly, I was right. I was right with the wrong people, but I was right. Because as we see the colony people board Enterprise's ship, La'an talks to a little girl and she makes this clicking sound, saying that's what she heard. And that's when everything, you see La'an's eyes widen, you she has like a little past memory. She looks out the window, yells at the captain, basically over comms, "Check for the signature. We found it. Shields up. We have to run. Like, we gotta go." And then she's all gun-ho, move, until she sees the ship and freezes. I was like, "No, don't do this to her." Because I was like, "Okay, La'an, you see what's going on. You know this is a bad guy. You know you guys have to act fast." But then you see the ship and you freeze. And I know with PTSD you can't always control it, but I'm just like, you built this character off of being quick to act to every single threat that could possibly come.
Right. And the weird thing, we saw a reflection, I think, in the glass of a guy. And I didn't know who this guy was until later on, finding out that that's her brother.
The older brother.
Yes. Who sacrificed himself for her.
Yes. And that was actually a really sweet scene. We will get into the brother-sister relationship probably in the second half of the episode, because there was a lot of ties between La'an and her brother and Spock and his sister, and both being the younger sibling. I think this is a very deep thing that we need to talk about. But we see La'an run to the bridge, telling them it's the Gorn, that they have to run, that they can't stay here. And Pike is trying to go through the the list of things he needs to do, and she's screaming, "It's the Gorn! Like, you gotta run!" And Pike is able to get them into a brown dwarf. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but a giant gas cloud of death. But basically, they can't see anyone and no one can see them. Ortega. And this sort of shows that I guess not a lot of people know what La'an's been through, because when they have their private meeting about what their next steps are, Ortega's like, "Well, no one's ever really seen the Gorn in years. How do you know it's them?" And La'an has to say something that I think is actually most people don't think about. It's like, plenty of people have seen them. You just never see those people again.
Right.
And that was like, when she said that, I was like, oh, That is very true. Just because you haven't seen them doesn't mean they're not there, because everyone who has seen them has been murdered by them.
Right. And that's like telling someone that their trauma doesn't exist because
Yes.
you didn't live in their shoes, so you don't know. So slow your roll, basically.
Yes. 100% agree with you on that one. Yes. I think it shut Ortega up for a bit. And I love Ortega. And I was like, honey, not the time. Not the time. And then we see that Spock comes up with a smart option of basically using radar, to make a fake radar, or like just to use the way the ship is plotting out to make sure they're not really hitting anything. It's all science. It goes over my head. Basically, he made a radar, and that made me think. You said The Hunt for Red October, but for me, it made me think of the new Battleship movie, the one with Rihanna, when they were using the buoys to dictate where people were. Like they couldn't see them. They couldn't see the alien, but when the alien would move a buoy, the buoy would send the location back to them. And so it made me think of Battleship. Like, oh, okay, you can't see them, but you're like guessing this is where they are based off of all the other information you have. I haven't seen The Hunt for Red October, so I can't say yes or no to that.
I haven't seen the movie you're referencing, so I have to catch up. But before we move on a little further, I just want to mention that earlier you mentioned that you knew it was a trap. And I just want to say that I thought it was a trap when they landed on the planet and like it was mysterious and no one's around. I was like, that's a trap. Someone's going to jump out at any moment. It was the dogs, but like, and then we saw the blood like all like angled towards one location. I was like, watch out, someone. Because typically in Star Trek, away mission, someone's going to die. A character that you haven't learned more about, like that person dies, a red shirt or blue shirt. But I was like, please, no one died. So I just wanted to mention that also that away mission seemed like that was a trap too.
Definitely thought that was, yes, you are 100% correct. I missed that, but yes, you are very correct. That they should have died. So while this is all happening, we see there's a whole nother side story that's happening with Uhura and Hammer. And we saw it a couple episodes ago that they had a little verbal tete-a-tete, little fight. Uhura made the mistake that a lot of able-bodied people make, is assuming someone with a disability is at a disadvantage. And that's not necessarily true. And assuming that they need help without asking them if you actually need help. And Hammer, I feel like Hammer took that personally because he's probably dealt with that a lot in his life. And so we see that they are working together this episode. And he assumes that she wants nothing to do with engineering. And she's trying to let him know, like, it's just like languages. People who, like, systems that don't talk to each other need to talk to each other. And I can tell that she knows she's fighting an uphill battle with him because she's already made that bad impression, regardless of the fact that it ended on a laugh. And he's like, you just like view me like everyone else does, and I'm trying to prove to you there's nothing wrong with me. So that was a very interesting conversation because he's sort of really standoffish with her and he's doing everything. And when the Gorn do attack them, they hit the cargo bay and they're locked into the room, and he has a broken arm and they can't get out of there. And there is basically a little mini warp bomb in the cargo bay with them that they need to defuse because they can't go to warp with it active the way that it is. And I just want to say, I want to say that Spock seemed a little concerned when he was like, they hit the cargo bay because he knew Uhura and Hammer was in there. Maybe it was just Uhura. I don't know. I'm just saying something. It just seemed like he was a little shocked. What did you think of their interactions?
Yeah, I could tell that Spock was concerned, and Pike looked like he was concerned as well, especially as we get further into the episode. Hammer, that she's capable, because he was doubting her, didn't think that she did her homework and stuff like that, but she was able to recite whatever answer to the question that he posed. But she was his eyes and his hands to help restore like the coolant or the core or whatever thingy they had to fix in the cargo bay to secure that location. And if I remember correctly, she helped lift something that was on his arm or in his hand. So she physically helped him to move him to safety, and then help the rest of the ship also. She really helped save the day. Otherwise, I think there was going to be an explosion in there.
Oh no, there was. Yeah, you're right. There was gonna be an explosion. I should laugh at that, but yeah.
Not bad for ensign.
We're proud of her.
Yeah.
Snaps and claps. There's so much to talk about with Pike going against basically all of the advice of his like crewmates, because they keep when Spock keeps giving him ideas or basically telling him, hey, look, we're going to die if we stay here. They only have one torpedo. He keeps like showing them his leadership, but in like a way that they think he's not listening to them. And so we see that while they're tracking the Gorn, like while they can track the Gorn with Spock's new idea, the Gorn can't track them because they didn't think of it. And so when they're right on top of the Discovery, right under the Discovery, I should say, Pike is like, okay, we're going to arm the torpedo. And Spock's like, well, have you not listened to me? Like, I straight up told you every single time, like, while we're in this gas cloud, the guidance system isn't going to work. He's like, I know that. We're just going to drop it on them. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. We could do that. But it seems like there's a lot of back and forth between Pike and his bridge crew, because they'll tell him something that's dangerous. He's like, all right, let's do it. And everyone's like, did you not just hear him? Like, Spock didn't say this was dangerous? Why are we doing this?
Right. Well, in addition to that, like, Leanne asked Spock, can you say it in plain English? Like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, so there was a lot of banter between all of them. And then Ortega, with her quick wit, like, okay, now we're talking. Like, yes. So she was eager to drop the torpedo, but all the others, like, she was questioning. You could kind of tell she was ready, I think, to get into defensive movers even before Pike was ready, when the Gorn scout ship was around them, and she was ready. She was like, she was a little too eager, and they had to help slow her roll there.
No, yeah, definitely. Okay, so we see that when Pike drops a torpedo, they blow up one of the Gorn ships, but then their victory is not held for long because they realize it was a trap. And Pike realizes that La'an was right, that they will Starfleet would have never sacrificed a ship to find out where someone else was, and the Gorn did. And I think that's when Pike really realized, we are fighting an enemy that I can't do normal procedures with this one. So I think I liked that scene of him sort of realizing, crap, my normal way isn't probably going to work with this crew. They're willing to kill each other to find us. So any thoughts about that before we go to break?
This shows really the test of Pike's strategy in battle, and also the crew coming together to work as a team. And Hammer said that he doesn't like teamwork, but he had to do it. And lots of other people just had to do it. And there was, unfortunately, some sacrifices too. There were some people that had to die in order to get into this maneuver to save all of Enterprise, right? So Pike was taking a lot of risk, and he showed confidence throughout this, throughout this strategy. And he asked everyone for creative solutions. I really like Pike's leadership. I just wanted to say that.
Me too. I agree. And there was a scene where we see that Pike had to make a difficult decision. And this sort of reminds me of like the submarine, of being on a sub, of like military strategy, was like the ship was going to compress. And Spock told them, like, look, if we don't close off the bulkhead, we're going to lose more people. And it's like, you have to risk some people who didn't make it out, who didn't fully evacuate, to save everyone else. And Pike's like, seal it off. And it's just like, no. But it's like, you got to make those hard decisions, because either it's like when the sub is hit, you have to seal off a lower level, and so that way the water doesn't keep coming in. And it's like, if people are in there alive, they're no longer alive, because they know. And it's like, what you're signing up for, but you hope it never happens. So now we're all talking about La'an and Spock going on a dangerous-ish mission to figure out where the Gorn are, figure out what to do, and how to basically save the crew, because they have no more bullets, torpedoes nothing else to really save them. And they're basically sitting ducks compared to these huger ships and more advanced ships that the Gorn have. We notice all throughout this episode that La'an is having trouble remembering her time on the ship. Like, she knows she was there. She knows her entire family was wiped out, but she can't really remember what's going on. It's part of, like, you know, your brain protecting you from memories that could do you harm because you're not really ready to process. And while she and Spock are on the shuttle, on the shuttle, just out of view of the Gorn ship, looking at them sending signals back and forth, she states out loud that she should remember this, that she should know what that means, but she can't remember. So she actually asked Spock to do the mind meld, correct? So it's to unlock her memory, so that way basically can save everyone. First, I'm really happy to see our first mind meld of the season, because I love my mind to your mind, my thoughts to your thoughts. I don't know why I love Vulcan so much, but I do.
I have to admit, I was thinking, this is not the time. Y'all should have done this before. That's what I just want.
She ain't lying, people. She ain't lying. And maybe do this on a ship with other people can guard you, so that way, you know, you're not still. But, you know, neither here nor there. Neither here nor there. And in this mind meld, we see a younger La'an, and we see the older and the younger one sort of like keep switching places throughout the memory as she's remembering what actually happened all those years ago. And then we realized that the little boy that she's been seeing was actually her brother, and how them being on the ship was a lot different than I anticipated, because I thought they would be held like in a cage, almost like how in Discovery we see that when they were on the Klingon ship, they were locked in a cage, but really it was worse. They were just hunted. They were just like, so who knows how long they survived. And they had to survive long enough because the brother was able to make a drawing of like how to read the signals. You're being hunted on a ship for hatchlings. I was not expecting that's how she was held. And so that made me have a little bit more respect for her. I still don't really like her personally, but it made me have a little bit more respect for what she went through, because it wasn't like she was just sitting in a cage and they were coming every day. Like, she was running for her life on a ship. On a ship, like, how do you ever really feel safe when you have nowhere, where you don't know where you can hide? And then we see that her brother sacrifices himself because he knows they're going to get found. So he tells his sister to keep running. I figured out what the lights mean. Here's what they are. He gives her all the proof. It sort of stops right before he leaves. She's asking Spock, what's going on? Why can't I? And he's like, your subconscious is trying to block you from seeing this pain. And then we hear Michael Burnham's voice. And she realizes that Spock has a sister. And she's like, but your records show that, like, they don't show that you do. And then you see ever so slightly Spock's jaw tighten. Like, you see him get angry. And I was like, oh, I like that. But you see him get angry and he cuts it short. And then we're seeing that La'an had an older brother who sacrificed himself for her. And Spock had an older sister that sacrificed herself for him. And how they're both sort of the younger sibling who's living with the memory of the sacrifice, and both don't really know how to move on from it, because we know that Spock hasn't truly moved on from missing his sister, because he can't even talk about her anymore.
Right.
And La'an doesn't really have the full memories of her brother because her brain sort of blocked it out. I feel like they got like a little bit of a respect for each other in that scene. What did you think?
Wow. So I'll admit, I watched that scene 3 times over the course of the last 2 days. And that's because I found that touching and fascinating. The writers were able to share a lot of information about Lan in a short period of time, between learning more about basically a minute by minute struggle during her childhood for survival. That's the ultimate trauma, right? And everyone that was with her died. And
Yes.
She was the lone survivor, and she was rescued by number 1. That I see why she like has strong shoulders, this wall up, and she's direct and to the point. And there's just some things that you put up a wall around trauma, and she hasn't been able to deal with her feelings. And that's why number 1 also mentioned earlier in the episode, this is maybe something you want to continue to work on, but she's not there yet. I don't know when she's gonna get there, but she needs to work it out. It's interesting. We're learning more that she's not as polished as what was earlier presented. It seemed like she was like just a strong security officer, and we're realizing why. But then also earlier in the episode, we saw her room, and her room was disheveled, a mess, and no one, even Tilly's section of the room was, she had, her bed was made, there weren't clothes thrown out on the bed and on the chair. Everyone else's room, I think, was very well organized except for Lana. And I think that's also because she has a mess in her room, and maybe there's a mess in her head, right? So there's a lot going on there. And to know that that her brother made a map showcasing light, how the Gorn uses light to travel, and her brother is just really smart. Her brother looks like he was like a teenager, maybe 15-ish, and she looked like she was around 7, 8, maybe 9. So this is around also the same time that Michael lost her parents. It just goes to show, with all of the battles of wars, there's people that's left behind, and the kids are the ones that have the biggest struggle ahead of them.
Did they deal with the trauma, or are they blocking it all out of their head? Okay, moving on to somewhat happier notes. So we're not all just crying at the end of this podcast. So with La'an sort of remembering what her brother showed her and gave her about the light signals, she signals to the big ship, like it's coming from the smaller ship, that humans get aboard. And the Gorn don't care about their people. Weakness is something that they snuff out. And so they immediately destroyed the smaller ship. And so that now left them with just one ship to deal with. And so they come back to Enterprise, and they basically are like, look, we need to... Pike asks Spock about how close they get to like the black hole and stuff, and then Spock explains what happens, and Pike's like, okay, let's do it. And Ortega's like, did you not just hear what he said? And then Pike's like, what does a snake, a possum, and then one other thing he said have in common? And La'an's like, they play dead when hunted or when attacked. And so Pike is like, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to fly near the black hole. They're going to drop that warp thing that Hammer and Uhura have been working this entire episode to stop from blowing up. And it's going to blow up when it leaves the cargo bay. The Gorn are going to think that the ship got destroyed, and they're going to wait till the Gorn ship leaves, and then they're going to escape and run away. Because one of the things about being a leader is also understanding you're not going to win every fight. And sometimes it's better to survive than to win. And survival sometimes is the win. And so Pike knows he can't defeat the bigger Gorn ship. So he has to do the best thing he can do to save everyone else on the ship. And so the issue is the warp thingy, the bomb, I'm calling it now, is stuck in the cargo bay along with Uhura and Hammer, and they can't get out. So they have to put on their like spacewalking suits. And sorry, I have Lower Deck in my mind because I was watching that yesterday, people, and all I want to do is just talk about it like that. But their spacewalking suits tether themselves to the inside of the cargo bay, and they complete the maneuver. We see that Uhura and Hammer might fly out of the cargo bay, and we see the plan works. That the Gorn thinks the ship is destroyed, and they fly away, and then you see Enterprise come around and shoot the opposite direction. And the first thing Pike does is show me the cargo bay. Screaming. I was like, oh no, they're going to come up through I was like, oh no, they're not responding because the camera's broken, but they're going to come up to the bridge, because now that the cargo bay door is open, all the heavy stuff that was blocking the door flew out so they could come up. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And then a couple seconds went by, and I'm like, maybe it's going to be fine. Maybe it's going to be fine. And then you see that Uhura responds. And to see the visceral reaction of Pike realizing that his people are still alive, I just wanted to hug him. Yeah. He is a great captain who truly loves his people. Because when he thought they were dead, he was like, we need to find a rescue crew. And then to hear that they're alive, he literally almost collapses in relief. I almost teared up on that one. I was like, oh wait, okay, we're not gonna cry. We're not gonna cry because we're strong, grown, independent women. We're not gonna cry. But I almost did. What did you think of the whole ending scene of that?
I didn't feel emotional about that one. I felt emotional when I heard Michael say, I love you to Spock, but not regarding a horror, because I knew that she was going to be alive because, like,
no, sorry.
no,
Let me.
But that's the way I felt. I was like, I know she's alive, but that's part of my like journey with this show is that I kind of know where it's going. So I know that some characters are gonna die. So I'm like, okay, let's get there.
So no,
I was a little worried about Hammer though. I was worried about Hammer.
My question wasn't about her if she was dead or not, because I knew she wasn't dead. It was more about Pike's reaction to it. That's the part I was asking about. Like, how did you feel about the way he reacted?
Yeah.
Because I knew Uhura was going to survive. It wasn't emotional about that because I was like, okay, she's going to come up. They're going to come up somewhere. But seeing how he reacted to hearing his crew was still alive, that's what I was asking a question about.
Regarding Pike, I believe that Anson Melt does an excellent job acting. Like, his expression shows that he cares about his team, his crew. And so I really like that. And he also just had them over for dinner. So there was this connection. I think he was also fond of everyone, but you could tell that with that acting that he had a vested interest in those two, because he didn't ask about the other like 7 people who passed away. Yeah, I agree with you. He emoted well.
Very well. I just want to give him a hug. It's okay, dude. It's okay. But at the end of this episode, we learned that officially 7 crew members have died, 3 of the colonists have died. Learned a lot more about La'an, and we come to understand her a bit more. I don't dislike her as much. Would we be friends? I don't know. But I don't dislike her. I respect her. I respect her now, because I don't think I respected her the last couple episodes, but now I respect her, and I think that's more important than liking her. And we see another person that we didn't really talk about this episode was number 1, because she was hurt in the bombing. And the only reason I didn't want to talk about too much is because I feel like her story was just like, she had her story last episode. This one wasn't really about her. But we see that she still puts her crew first. When they had to do old school surgery on her, and when she needed plasma to survive a surgery, she gave it to another crew member who needed the plasma. And I think that sort of goes into more of her character. She's like, I'm willing to put myself at risk for my crew members. And I like that as well. She's not like, well, I need to survive so I can keep leading the team. She's like, I think for her and Pike, it's like, if I don't have a team, what's the point of being a leader?
Right. And then Dr. Mbenga also gave his plasma to her. So you could see that scene where he was connected to her. So that showed it coming around full circle. I think though her injury was like an exit to help showcase Leon's character on the bridge, because then she stepped up as number 1. If number 1 was there, then Leon would have been over to the side. And maybe her voice would not have been as heard or as strong. Although she's the only one on the ship that has seen the Gorn, so they should have believed her. But there would have been the command lines would have been different.
Yes. No, 100% agree. Number 1 could not have been there, because this was La'an's time to shine. And unlike the last time where she was sort of like in the lead, the acting number 1, and she and Pike kept going, sort of butting heads. This time he sort of deferred to her. He's like, he's now starting to trust her and understand this experience. He can't go just by his knowledge, because he has never had any experience with the Gorn, but she has. And so he takes what she says, not with a grain of salt, but he doesn't 100% rely on it in a sense, but he takes what she knows, but still like sort of warps it in a way that it works the way he does it. So he's like, I'm not negating what he said, but I can't run from this right now. We have to do what's best for everyone. So I think that shows, you're 100% right. Number 1 had to be gone so La'an could be there, but this also helped her and Pike's relationship, I think, as well. Any final thoughts about this episode?
Just like 2, I would like to learn more about Mbenga. Dr. Mbanga, and I noticed that Nurse Chapel didn't mess up her uniform at all. Like, she didn't have any blood, no dirt on her uniform, and it's a white uniform compared to Hugh in many battles on Discovery. He was covered in blood, there was soot, there's like and this one, they were in triage mode. I'm surprised there wasn't like at least line of dirt. I don't know. So she's a little too polished. I'm hoping later on we'll learn more about her. I know that the ship's going to need repairs. So because
hella repairs. Definitely agree with you. The ship is definitely going to need repairs. They're going to need to get some Starfleet. Like, hey, look, we need some help. Can someone warp here and be our guard as we come back? Because we got no photon to freedom. We got nothing, people. We got nothing. It's now going to be probably a Starfleet wide. Hey, look, the Gorn's coming. They're out there. We've seen them. We survived. This is no longer a if they come out. It's a when, because as La'an said, they've never come this far before. They're getting new hunting grounds, and that is dangerous. And I think for all the other episodes we've seen so far, this was probably the first one that could lead to future implications within the episode, because future we could see them pop up in another episode, just because the Gorn, and regardless if it's with the Enterprise or if like another ship gets hit by the Gorn, this is now a new enemy that Starfleet needs to worry about, because they're coming closer to civilizations. And that's something they need to be worried about.
And they're cutthroat. They'll sacrifice their own.
Yes. They do not care. They do not care. Oh, you're a broken leg? Headshot. I could have survived that. Don't care. You would have slowed me down. I think that the show continues. Again, I think I said this last episode. It continues to surprise me, because I never know what to expect going into the next episode. So this next episode could be about them having a meeting with Starfleet, talking about the Gorn, like, hey, like a holographic meeting saying, look, you got to be on guard, and the ship could be getting repairs. Or 6 months could have passed before the next episode, and the ship's already repaired, and like this is in the past. So I like the unpredictability of it. I don't know what to expect, so I can expect anything. So, and for Nurse Chapel, I'm gonna say this: that girl, she's like, I ain't getting dirty for no one. This uniform is clean. It's gonna stay clean, because I'm not. Y'all keep ruining my outfit. That's probably what she's thinking.
And last episode, I mentioned that there's a lot of skeletons in the closet, and Leanne now knows about another one. She knows that Spock has a sister that
there's no record of,
that no one knows about. That's not in the records. And she could start to put some pieces of the puzzle together. So, plot thickens.
Because she's smart. Mm-hmm. She's real smart. So, okay. Well, thank you guys for listening to another episode. And as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Monica.
And live long and prosper.